Also breaking tonight, a top Justice Department official met today with former Epstein confidant Ghislaine Maxwell. The session happened in a Florida prison where Maxwell is serving a sentence for conspiring with Epstein to sexually abuse minors. Correspondent David Spunt has details tonight. Good evening, Dave.
Brett, good evening. Ghislaine Maxwell's attorneys praised Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanch and the Justice Department for meeting with her in person today, not far from that prison at a federal courthouse in Tallahassee. Now, the courthouse was just miles from where Ghislaine Maxwell is serving a 20-year sentence behind bars. The discussion lasted for several hours, and while the DOJ is not commenting on what was said, Maxwell's attorney gave us some details.
He took a full day and asked a lot of questions, and Ms. Maxwell answered every single question. She never stopped, she never invoked a privilege, she never declined to answer. She answered all the questions truthfully, honestly, and to the best of her ability.
But, Brett, legal experts question whether Maxwell told her version of the truth or the actual truth. We have some recent photos snapped by Fox Digital of Maxwell outside that Florida prison on a run.
I think the reason you send someone like Blanche instead of an assistant U.S. attorney is because you want to show Maxwell that the government is serious about making some kind of deal. Maxwell's not going to say a single word. She has no incentive to say a single word unless she gets some kind of benefit.
And tonight we're awaiting decisions from two federal judges in New York who will decide if they will release grand jury transcripts from investigations involving both Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell's cases there. Epstein died in prison in 2019 before ever going to trial on sex trafficking. Yesterday, a Florida judge indicated she would not release the grand jury material in Epstein's solicitation of a minor case in Florida back in 2008. That judge says her hands are tied, as anything to do with a grand jury in the American court system, Brett, typically, as we know, kept close and secretive. Back to you.
David, thank you.
Thanks.
Let's bring in John Yoo, former Deputy Assistant Attorney General, now a law professor at UC Berkeley. John, great to have you with us. I'll start with the question that David Spunt raised. Highly unusual for someone in Todd Blanche's position to go down there and speak to a convict for sexual trafficking.
It's extraordinary. In fact, I can't think of another time in the history of the country where something like this has happened. Right? Todd Blanch is the right-hand man to the Attorney General, the top federal law enforcement officer of the entire United States. I worked for a Deputy Attorney General. I clerked for another judge who had been Deputy Attorney General. They never said ever that when they were in those jobs, they would go down and meet with any suspect, any witness, or anybody who's actually been convicted and serving time. These people are way up at the top of our justice system, and they're reaching all the way down to intervene on a matter which would usually just be handled by assistant U.S. attorney and FBI agents. I think that's a sign of how seriously now the Trump administration is taking this, how much I think they're worried that people are losing faith in the integrity of the Justice Department leadership, that they would take someone of such high standing and have them personally participate in interviewing someone like this.
Okay, so why is the question? Why is Todd Blanch talking to Ghislaine Maxwell? And clearly, she has an incentive to try to get herself out of this prison, right?
Mm-hmm. I think the reason you send someone like Blanch instead of an assistant U.S. attorney is because you want to show Maxwell that the government is serious about making some kind of deal. Maxwell's not going to say a single word. She has no incentive to say a single word unless she gets some kind of benefit. She might be hoping for a commutation of her sentence to time served. She might even be hoping for a pardon. Or at the very least, she might hope to be moved to a better facility that'd be less restrictive than the one she's in now. You send Blanche because the Justice Department is saying, we're serious about this. We may actually cut a deal. But on the other hand, Maxwell's a convicted sex offender. Why would we take anything she says seriously? She's not to be trusted. She doesn't have credibility. So that's why you also send the Deputy Attorney General.
Yeah, as Virginia Giuffre said about this, Epstein was Pinocchio and Ghislaine was Geppetto pulling the strings. We'll see where this goes. John Yoo, thank you very much. Good to have you with us today.
Thanks, Martha.
Ghislaine Maxwell's sit-down with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche comes as pressure builds across party lines for answers. The battle for information leading House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer to issue a subpoena for Maxwell to testify before his panel.
Next month, lawmakers will head to the prison where Maxwell is right now serving a 20-year sentence to hear exactly what she has to say. We have live Fox News team coverage for you. Jonathan Turley is here on that in moments.
But we begin with our David Spunt. He's live here in Washington with the latest on this meeting between Todd Blanch and Ghislaine Maxwell. Dave?
Well, hey, John, good to be with you. It's not clear exactly what time this meeting began today, how long it will go, or even what they're talking about, though clearly we'd love to be a fly on the wall to hear that conversation. But Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanch is meeting with the former girlfriend and convicted co-conspirator of Jeffrey Epstein. As we mentioned, it's happening at the courthouse in Tallahassee. This is not far from the prison where Maxwell is serving a 20-year sentence behind bars. Again, what's being discussed, we don't know. The Justice Department not commenting about any of the meeting details. But we do have some recent photos snapped by Fox Digital of Ghislaine Maxwell recently outside the Florida prison on a run or a walk. Now, her attorney says that she'll tell the truth. But the question has to be asked, at what price? Is there a deal to be cut with the Justice Department? Again, DOJ officials not even commenting on that possibility. But that question has been asked and will be asked many times in the future. In more Maxwell news, as we mentioned, House Oversight Chairman James Comer issued that formal subpoena for her to testify in a prison deposition regarding her role in what she may know in Epstein's crimes. Now, she could take the Fifth Amendment and keep quiet. Here's Comer.
August 11th is the date when we hope to depose Maxwell in that prison facility in Tallahassee.
And yesterday, a Florida federal judge says she will not release grand jury material in Epstein's solicitation of a minor case in Florida back in 2008. The judge says her hands are tied, as anything to do with a grand jury in the American court system is typically kept close to the vest and secretive. But John and Sandra, we are still awaiting decisions from judges on grand jury transcripts from the New York Jeffrey Epstein and the New York Ghislaine Maxwell cases. Those could come at any time. This was a request by Attorney General Pam Bondi in the name of transparency. But again, judges will typically rule against releasing grand jury material, as I'm sure Professor Turley will mention soon, if you ask him. Back to you.
But I'm sure, and we will ask him that, I'm sure that the professor will also agree that there are exceptions to the rule based on a compelling interrogatory. We'll see. David, thank you. Give us more details of this meeting when you can. Appreciate it. Sandra?
All right, Jonathan Turley's here, constitutional law attorney, professor at George Washington University and Fox News contributor. So jump on in there with these questions, Jonathan, as this meeting is happening right now. What are your thoughts?
Well, Sandra, one of the interesting aspects about this meeting is that Blanche may be the first Department of Justice official to interview Maxwell. I was under the impression, the reporting previously, was that she had spoken to investigators. After all, there were numerous state and federal investigations into this scandal. I was told by a member of her legal team that she has never been interviewed by the Justice Department. And that does raise the question of whether she is an untapped source of information. So this is a much more significant interview than many of us might have anticipated. The assumption is that if she had something to trade, she would have done it already. I mean, the expiration date on this milk is long past because she's already been sentenced to 20 years, and you would think she would have come forward and say, look, I've got something here that's worth a trade. But she is making many people feel uncomfortable today because she is someone who may have a lot of information that simply has not been revealed.
Yeah, and her brother is suggesting that she will be putting forward new evidence. He tells the New York Post, quote, she will be putting before the court material new evidence that was not available to the defense at her 2021 trial, which would have had a significant impact on its outcome. All right, so this is also Maxwell's attorney responding to all of this on BBC. She would testify truthfully, as she always has said she would. As for the congressional subpoena, Ms. Maxwell is taking this one step at a time. She looks forward to her meeting with the Department of Justice, and that discussion will help inform how she proceeds. I guess we're really left wondering, I mean, is this just a little bit of new information, or is she sitting on a mountain of new evidence?
Well, that's the intriguing aspect, because most of us assumed that she had been interviewed repeatedly. That's what the legal team is now saying has not actually occurred. And of all of the people that would have the goods, essentially, on this scandal, it is Maxwell. I mean, with the exception of Epstein himself, she was this ubiquitous presence. She's in all of these pictures. She's just in the background. That is always your most dangerous witness, someone who is unseen but always there. And the question is, does she have something that would be material for a criminal prosecution? Not just embarrassing. Obviously, there's going to be lots of embarrassing information. But what we're probably going to find out through Congress as well as the Department of Justice is whether indeed she has something more that has never been revealed.
Yeah, and that is the bottom line in your piece, The Mystery of Ghislaine Maxwell. Does Epstein's associate have an untold story? Before you go, Professor Turley, I want to go back to our conversation yesterday. On Tulsi Gabbard. She showed up at the White House press briefing yesterday. She shook things up, citing this new declassified intel that shows the Obama administration was politicizing intelligence. Jason Chaffetz joined you and went off on this on America Reports yesterday. Listen.
Anytime I've ever heard of somebody lying to a court, the court takes care of itself. There are repercussions to that. So when the government lies to the FISA court, where is Chief Justice Roberts on this? Where is the court? How come the court is not going back? I'm not an attorney. Jonathan Turley is going to have to take this. Why isn't the court demanding that there are repercussions for those people that they bogusly signed these warrants?
And then we ran out of time and the show was over. So can we get your response, sir? Where is the court on this?
Well, Jason has a very good point here, and he's walked the walk. He's been there in Congress and trying to get this information. And it does appear that a couple of these figures may have committed perjury. I think the most vulnerable may be Brennan, who's like a 30-point buck now out in the open. I mean, this stuff goes directly to information that he gave to Congress. It seems to be in contradiction. And so there are real questions here. I mean, people talk about, well, you can't charge Obama. That's very likely the case. He's probably protected. But these individuals, whether it's Comey or Brennan, are not protected from perjury charges if the statute of limitations has not run. They are more likely to be called again to repeat prior testimony.
Professor Turley, we always appreciate when you can join us. Thank you so much. And good to have you actually finish your thought on that.
Thank you, Sandra.
All right.
Meantime, a meeting is now underway at a Florida courthouse in Tallahassee between Ghislaine Maxwell, the convicted accomplice of Jeffrey Epstein, and the Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. The House Oversight Committee has issued a subpoena for Maxwell to testify before that panel next month. Lawmakers will head to the prison where Maxwell is serving a 20-year sentence to hear what she has to say. Tennessee Republican Congressman Tim Burchett is on the House Oversight Committee. We'll get to Joe Biden in just a moment, but let's start on the Maxwell Blanch meeting that's happening right now in Florida. And the question that I have for you is, you were pushing this resolution for a subpoena for Ghislaine Maxwell to give a deposition before the House Oversight Committee. What do you want to know from her, Congressman?
Well, I wrote Chairman Comer a letter a couple weeks ago, and in fact, we passed the resolution in the subcommittee of oversight and to get that subpoena, and Chairman Comer graciously agreed to follow through with it. Yeah, I would hope that we could get to the bottom of it. I want to know the money trail. I want to know who employed, was Epstein a foreign agent, who are his benefactors. I want to know the way that they access these children. I want to know names of the people that were involved. I don't care about people who flew on his dadgum plane. President Trump has stated multiple times he flew on his plane. As a matter of fact, he banned that dirtbag from Mar-a-Lago over 15 years ago. I'm tired of hearing people trying to pin Trump to it. Trump has been out front saying that he knew the guy, and he banned him from Mar-a-Lago. They knew each other. They ran in the same circles. It's just like me. I know a lot of dirtbags myself. But I would hope that we could follow the money trail and just see where it all leads. And hopefully in all this, and I warn people, we need to protect the name of the innocent. Then they were children at the time that were raped, over 1,000 apparently.
Yeah.
And you know, I've been told we could bring down governments and places all over the world. Well, if they're built on this, dadgummit, we ought to bring them down, because they are, to me, they're doing business with the devil, and I'm sure Mr. Epstein's dealing with him right now.
So one of the big questions is, how much does Ghislaine Maxwell know? Constitutional law professor Alan Dershowitz believes that she holds the keys to the kingdom. Listen to what he said.
She is the Rosetta Stone. She knows everything. She arranged every single trip with everybody. She knows everything. And if she were just given use immunity, she could be compelled to testify. I'm told that she actually would be willing to testify, and there'd be no reason for her to withhold any information.
Do you share the same opinion as the professor, that she knows where all of the bodies are buried?
Alan is correct, and I would warn people too. They'll tell people, say, well, she'll get up there and lie. If there's a paper trail, if there's any of those files show that she lies and she perjured herself, she'll go back to prison under her original sentence. So I think she's compelled to tell the truth in this, and Professor Dershowitz is correct, I believe. She does hold all the keys to the kingdom on this issue.
Right. On that particular point, you have a point of disagreement with the Speaker of the House, who thinks that she would not be truthful. Listen to what Speaker Johnson said.
Could she be counted on to tell the truth? Is she a credible witness? I mean, this is a person who's been sentenced to many, many years in prison for terrible, unspeakable conspiratorial acts and acts against innocent young people. I mean, can we trust what she's going to say? Even if she raises her hand and says that she'll testify under oath, is that something that can be trusted? You know, that's a reasonable question. Is that credible evidence? I don't know, but we'll have to see.
But you disagree. You believe that she would be compelled to tell the truth.
Unless she wants to go back to prison. I mean, the Speaker is a constitutional attorney. I'm not. I passed a lot of laws, and a lot of times I'll have to get the attorneys to tell me what they said. So he understands the law a lot better than I do, but I think she'll be compelled to tell the truth, and I think she knows that there's enough of a paper trail. But yeah, there's always the chance that she'll lie, because she is a dirtbag. She procured these kids for Epstein, obviously, and in some strange way she loved him. And so I just don't see, I said, let's get her in there. Let's let the legal experts do it. I've talked to many legal experts. I've been talking to my friend Greg Isaacs here in town, criminal defense attorney, of questions that should be asked. And, you know, and I hope I can get that opportunity to be there.
Yeah. Another point of interest for you, who knew what when with Joe Biden and his fitness for office? Ron Klain is currently giving a deposition before committee staffers. Unlike Andy Thomasini, Anthony Brunel, and Dr. Kevin O'Connor, he did not take the fifth. We spoke with Ro Khanna and Congressman Andy Biggs after the first session, just before the lunch break. Here's what they said about his testimony.
I found Mr. Klain to be very credible. He answered every single question. He was fully cooperative. There are times where he was asked about personal conversations he had with the president, and he was forthcoming, even if he could have said it was a private matter.
Carefully. It's going, he's saying the things that I kind of expected him to say, which is reflective of the book, the Whipple book, and some of the articles written about that. But he's been answering the questions, I think, forthrightly and in the way he sees the world.
Not there for the deposition today, but you've been talking with your colleagues on the committee. What have you been hearing?
I think that it's disclosing what's going on, and just the track they took to get things done. You know, of course, the auto pen is what everybody's looking at. But I think the interesting thing to note is with this, if you've ever talked to prosecutors, especially the mob or other groups like that, they find somebody who will talk. And this guy's an honorable man, and he sees the writing on the wall. And these other people are trying to avoid probably a prison sentence, and they're being ill-advised, I would say. And he's been advised correctly. And I suspect once the mortar starts falling off the brick wall, a few more of these are going to come forward, because they're going to say, man, I'm going to be implicated in this thing, and they're going to have to start talking. But I find it to be very credible. And, you know, and the thing is, too, the national media chastised people like me. I was banned from stations because I said things that he was in. he was inept and mentally unstable to be the commander in chief. And that was years ago. And now all of a sudden it's just commonplace. So I think that can't be said enough.
All right. Well, we'll see what some of your colleagues might have to say about Clayton's testimony when they come out of it. They're in the afternoon session now. We'll see what the future holds. Congressman, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it. All right, Sandra.
All right, John.
Brett Baer joins us now. Brett, your thought about where this investigation's going and what new have you learned?
Listen, Brian, I think that the documents show a pattern, and we haven't really seen the end of it. I think the president said there's hundreds more, maybe 1,000, and you heard that from Tulsi Gabbard as well. I think that what becomes painting the picture, and we had a suspicion that, they were really trying hard to tag Russia to the Trump administration, to the president-elect. I mean, remember the coverage back then of, he was a Russian asset, essentially. And nothing that we've seen backs up any of those early conclusions. And then, yesterday we went back and I played the 2018 interview with Jim Comey. I kind of grilled him on specifics of the investigation. And the disparity between the Hillary Clinton email investigation and the Trump-Russia investigation is really stark. And I think people have to look back at the prism of that time to get a context of what this all starts to look like.
Yeah, and part of the reason is, look, so people to know, the dossier that was looked as pure fiction was also used by John Brennan to build a case and to get FISA warrants to pursue different surrogates representing Trump, not major players outside you had Carter Page and you had George Papadopoulos. But when asked about the origins of the dossier, which is so controversial, it was amazing how ambivalent he was. Cut 9.
When the Steele dossier comes out sometime early July, when did you personally learn about the memos in the dossier?
Sometime in the fall. I don't remember exactly when.
So who told you about them?
I don't remember. Someone on my senior staff.
Do you remember how they were described?
I remember they briefed me about it, explained that it came from a reliable source, former Allied intelligence officer.
When did you learn that the DNC and Hillary Clinton campaign had funded Christopher Steele's work?
Yeah, I still don't know that for a fact.
What do you mean?
I've only seen it in the media. I never knew exactly which Democrats had funded. I knew it was funded first by Republicans, opposed to Donald.
But that's not true.
I'm sorry?
That's not true. That the dossier that Christopher Steele worked on was funded by Republicans?
My understanding was his work started funded by Oppo Research, funded by Republicans.
So Free Beacon and said that they had Glenn Simpson and Fusion GPS on a kind of a retainer, but they did not fund the Christopher Steele memo or the dossier. That was initiated by Democrats.
Okay, my understanding was the activity was begun that Steele was hired to look into, was first funded by Republicans, then picked up, the important thing was picked up by Democrats opposed to Donald Trump.
Did you tell President Obama that the dossier was who it was funded by?
No, not to my recollection.
Did you want to know who it was funded by?
I wanted to know what I knew, which is that it was funded by people politically opposed to Donald Trump.
So you still to this day don't know that it was funded by the DNC or
I've read that in the media, but I don't know for a fact and didn't know while I was at the FBI.
I mean, you're the FBI director. You don't want to know the origins of intelligence about the future and current president of the United States? Even at I could see you were totally in disbelief.
That you're briefing on, that you are talking to National Intelligence Director, the CIA Director. That is a big part of the FISA application, to spy on Carter Page. I mean, listen, you have to have a whiteboard to remember all the specifics of this thing. We are so inundated in it that I remembered, I knew kind of every piece of it, definitely back then. I still have it in my mind. But you have to remember how all of this is interconnected. And here's an FBI director saying, I didn't know who funded it. I still don't know the Democrats officially funded it. I read it in the media.
Yeah, I mean, and I just don't believe that for a second, but that whole feeling of who are you, that arrogant way, which what kind of question is that? But I'll answer it for you people. If it could sell a few books or help you tell your story, which was the story, and it's basically John Brennan, James Comey, President Obama, Susan Rice together have what they are claiming was legitimate questions about how Donald Trump was elected. And looking back at this paperwork, they don't have legitimate questions. They know how he was elected. The Russians didn't affect it, but they went out of their way to make it seem like that. And when they got Robert Mueller to be special prosecutor, they must have been high-fiving wherever they were located, maybe in the Barack Obama's mansion.
Yeah, because Mueller was starting to be off his game, and then the testimony of Mueller, really, he was off his game, and you realized how there wasn't any there. You know, it just was not there. And now I think, you know, they classified a lot of documents. So thinking that nobody was going to get to them. Well, Tulsi Gabbard is getting to them and declassifying them. And listen, it's a story. Is it the biggest story? I don't know. Maybe, because maybe it goes to even more documents that point directly to it. But it's clearly a big story, and it's kind of surprising that it doesn't get covered on substance in other places.
But it's like it was never covered. It wasn't covered. It was only covered that on the collusion element of it, but not after the Robert Mueller found out there was no collusion element of it. People just got their trophies, their awards for covering a story that wasn't true. And then they just went back to not being curious about it when it turned out not to be true.
It's really amazing. If you think back at that time, you know, how many TV shows on other networks are going, tick, 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 here comes the thing that's coming the next day, breaking, you know, Washington Post, New York Times. And it was every day. It was like another drip, drip, drip from the intelligence community. And now, you know, there's no interest. And it's really unbelievable.
So what's happening again, though, we're watching in real time. The Epstein becomes an investigation that almost every other channel and every Democrat wants to cover. They have had no interest on it for 10 years, almost none, except, you know, with Bill Gates, when Bob Gates, Bill Gates, his name came up, when Prince Andrew's name came up, when Bill Clinton's picture popped up. Then people were curious about Epstein. Did he kill himself? But now that they feel as though there's links to Trump, this is what Democrats want to focus on. And now you have Republicans in the House saying, okay, we do want all this information and we do want an investigation. And it turns out in the Wall Street Journal today, Pam Bondi came out and told Trump in May that his name popped up in the Epstein files. She said it was coming multiple times, but she did also say it doesn't involve wrongdoing. Your name's there, which shouldn't surprise Trump because he knew him and he came to his wedding.
Yeah, our David Spunt confirmed that as well, that briefing had happened, that she had said just because your name's in here doesn't mean it's anything bad. She said that, you know, it could be, it's not, we don't see it at this point. And so David Spunt had that as well yesterday. I think, you know, listen, in the big context, we don't know what's in these documents and these files, all of them. And is there a push to get them all out? Yes. Do people believe, considering how the Russia hoax, as it's called by the Trump administration, was handled back in the day, do people really believe if there was super bad material that involved Donald Trump that it wouldn't have managed to leak from the intelligence community during the Biden years? I mean, I'm not sure I can get there.
I can't get there either. And I would say, these are my two analogies. And I would not be surprised if this turned up on Special Report tonight, maybe in your monologue. And no one, you know, I'm not going to say anything. But there was a lot. And if it happens, it happens. I'm used to it. But there's a lot of people who said Bill Cosby was a national treasure and was the best comedian maybe ever. And there's tons of pictures with Bill Cosby. Well, it turns out there was another life. There's a lot of people, when I was out in California, that just, O.J. Simpson was a top broadcaster, was a top athlete, was a movie star for a while. Everybody was hanging out with him. Al Michaels was his best friend, and so was Bob Costas, was tight. And then he ends up being a double murderer. So obviously, I don't blame these people for hanging out with them when their character turns out to be different. 15 years before Epstein hung himself, Trump said, I'm done with this guy. He's a creep.
Yeah, kicks him out of the club in, I think, 2004. Listen, I think that transparency is the greatest thing. I'm all for, lighting up the dark places. And we may get to a point where that's exactly what happens. But this whole thing about, every little nuance is another breaking story does feel like a pattern. And we'll see. We'll see where it goes.
All right. Brett, last night's interview with the NVIDIA CEO, the founder, his story is unbelievable. But I just thought it was interesting. His point to President Trump to allow him to sell the best chips in the world to China, or the second best. H20 is the second best. H100 is the best. And he said, look, if we base, and tell me if I'm wrong here, if we don't sell them to them, they're going to find a way to make their own. And then they're going to be totally on their own. At least we would be leading the field and be in control of the currency for this new technology. And Trump bought into it, right?
He did, and he was convinced that these are very complex to make. NVIDIA has, this process, and the really high stuff, the cutting edge stuff, is not the stuff that would be going to China. It would be the lower iteration. That said, I asked Jensen Huang, who's to say that in 3 months your chip becomes a China chip? And he said, we have to engage. America has to be leading, and we'll control the innovation side, which I think is a message that they've got, safeguards, and that the best stuff will be in the U.S.
We got a raging stock market. We got another trade deal, and I think the EU seems to be ready to launch. And the president's got the big, beautiful bill, now a law that he feels as though the more people know it, the better it's going to be. You got the attack on our successful attack on Iran's nuclear program. How frustrated do your sources say the president is that people aren't focusing on that and are focusing on the Epstein scandal?
Yeah, he's a little PO'd, I think, from people who are in the circle. But he understands it's part of the game. That said, he looks at the chessboard and sees a lot of great moves for the U.S. And to your point, markets, the fact that money is coming in from all over the world, not just the tariff money, but investment and opening markets other places. The Japan deal, I know, very proud of, and I think there's going to be an EU deal very soon. They're on the cusp of it. You got the possibility of real skyrocketing growth. And it's, a lot of people are looking at it on the market side in pretty bullish terms.
Right. And by the way, the latest on Hamas and the hostage release, it looks like Hamas is not quite there yet, and they've disbanded talks. Everyone back to their respective corners with Hamas. We thought we might have a hostage deal coming down, but it looks like it's going to be delayed. But the talks are not dead. We'll see what happens over there.
I just did taping with some of the families of hostages still alive, and also one that has been released, talking about what it's like on the inside. We're going to air that next week, but I talked to them for a long, long time, and the grief of waiting is overwhelming.
Absolutely, Brett. Big interviews. I just want you, the foreign minister of Iran, the takeaway. I love the follow-up when you basically said you're funding Hezbollah and Hamas. These are terrorist groups. He goes, no, they're freedom fighters, but we have to help them. You have to help Hezbollah take over Lebanon? Really?
Yeah. I thought some of those answers were really, jarring, but I think the viewers knew what he was doing. I did think there were some things that came out of that, his assessment of the damage, severely damaged or destroyed nuclear facilities, but then saying we are going to do enrichment and continue enrichment because it's a national pride. That caught some people in the White House by surprise, because they thought Iran was going to come to the table differently.
I hear you. Brett Baer, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
We'll see him.
Yep.
Fox News is now told that convicted Jeffrey Epstein accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell could be meeting with Deputy AG Todd Blanch in prison as soon as today. This is a federal judge has denied the DOJ's request to release the Epstein grand jury transcripts. It's hard to do in law. We'll see whether or not that happens in the end. David Spunt brings us up to date now. Maxwell is in jail in Florida near Tallahassee, I believe. David, good morning.
Bill, good morning. That's right, serving a 20-year sentence. The plan is to have that meeting today. The timing could slide, but it is likely that it's happening, and hopefully we'll find out after that meeting is done. The Justice Department not commenting on the location or time of any meeting, even the day of any meeting, but we are hearing from other sources. Now, we're told by her attorney that Ghislaine Maxwell is ready to talk, and the Justice Department wants to hear what she has to say in the form of Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanch. These are recent photos of her, snapped by Fox Digital of Maxwell outside the Florida prison on a daily walk. Her attorney says she'll tell the truth, but the question has to be asked, at what price? Is there a deal to be cut with the DOJ? Of course, DOJ officials not commenting on that possibility, but it's a fair question.
If she had all this information, the time she would have used it was when she was trying to reach some kind of plea bargain with the government to avoid the very jail time she's in now.
Now, President Trump could pardon or commute her sentence, but given that she was convicted of bringing underage girls to convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein, it may not be something the White House wants to consider. No comment from them there. Now, in more Maxwell news, House Oversight Chairman James Comer issued a formal subpoena for Maxwell to testify in a prison deposition regarding her role in Epstein's crimes and what she would know. This is scheduled for August 11th, but of course, she could take the Fifth Amendment and keep quiet. Yesterday, separately, a federal judge in Florida says that the judge cannot release grand jury material in Jeffrey Epstein's solicitation of a minor case in Florida back in 2008 because she says her hands are tied as anything to do with the grand jury, and the American court system is typically kept close to the vest and secretive. Now, we're still awaiting decisions from judges on grand jury transcripts from the New York Jeffrey Epstein and the New York Ghislaine Maxwell criminal cases, but the judge in Florida is saying no to those grand jury transcripts, and Attorney General Pam Bondi moved to unseal those transcripts as part of a measure of transparency, but the judge in Florida so far says no dice.
Yeah. They may try again. We'll see. David, thank you. David Spunt watching that at DOJ.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.